Hello and welcome to the February 2020 First Friday Fives and Go Big Bore or Go Home. I'm sorry we missed January, but hopefully that will be our only miss for the year. I'm your host Sean, and this month we're going to talk about big bore rifle cartridges chambered in revolvers. Finally, am I right? Now for clarity, we're not discussing single-shot pistols, as you can chamber pretty much anything in a single-shot pistol. Our list would be endless. But we are going to talk about cartridges that were meant for a rifle, but someone insane enough to try it, chambered it in a revolver. I'm going to avoid any chamberings that have to seat bullets deeper in their casing or shorten their brass casing to fit. It has to fit in the cylinder without any modification to qualify for this list. I'll be listing these in order of least to most powerful, and I will also give some estimated recoil numbers adjusted where possible to reflect the velocities that come out of a revolver versus a rifle. But enough talk. Let's get to what you came here for. Number 5. The 444 Marlin, chambered in the Century Manufacturing Incorporated Model 100 and the Magnum Research BFR. If you ever wanted a more powerful version of the 44 Magnum for a rifle, then this cartridge is for you. Designed in 1964 by Marlin and Remington, at the time the 4570 was AWOL and needed a replacement. Big bore rifle cartridges were unrepresented in lever actions, and Marlin had a solution. The 444 Marlin. It has the same .429-inch bullet diameters of 44 Magnum, but with a case length of 2.225 inches. This basically created a 44 caliber 4570, which was not a bad idea. Big, heavy bullets make for excellent brush guns in heavily wooded hunting areas. And with the extra room for powder, your 240 grain bullets could achieve a scorching 2,350 feet per second. Now we have some serious big bore rifle power. And you can load heavier bullets too. Buffalo Bore makes a round that shoots a 300 grain bullet at an impressive 2,150 feet per second. That's a solid 3,080 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The 444 Marlin was originally found in a now discontinued revolver called the Model 100 that started production in the 1970s. It was created by a company called Century Manufacturing Incorporated, not to be confused with the modern-day Century Arms that imports cheap AKs from China. These custom-made 6-pound monsters eventually disappeared, numbering around 3,000 total for all chamberings. But Magnum Research revived the 444 Marlin revolver. While the BFR was originally based on the D-Max Sidewinder revolvers that Magnum Research bought out in the 90s, they overhauled the revolver to add strength, material, and weight. In the early 2000s, the 444 Marlin chambering came around in the BFR with a 10-inch barrel. Sure, that makes for a larger, more unwieldy gun, but one that can achieve long-distance shooting for hunting and silhouette competition. The Buffalo Bore loading mentioned previously would generate roughly 44 foot-pounds of free recoil out of a BFR, and that's about twice the recoil of a hot 44 Magnum. A final note on the BFR 444 Marlin is that it holds a special place in the history of Go Big Bore or Go Home. Around 2001-2002, I was hanging out with my older brother Steve at a local gun shop. We happened to look into a particular display case to see a BFR chambered in 444 Marlin. Steve turned to me and threw down a challenge. "If you can shoot a full 5-shot cylinder 444 Marlin out of that thing," Steve said, "I'll buy it for you." Even then, my resolve was set. "You've got a deal," I told him. He just chuckled and walked away. And to this day, I still haven't gotten my 444 Marlin BFR. One day, Steve. One day. Number 4. The 4570 Government and the 450 Marlin, chambered in the Century Manufacturing Incorporated Model 100, the D-Max Sidewinder, and the Magnum Research BFR. In 1973, exactly 100 years after the 4570 Government was put into service, Century Manufacturing Incorporated started producing oversized versions of the Colt single-action Army in the 4570 cartridge. This led to the revolver being named the Model 100.
Oh, now I get it!
These guns remind me of the cartoon revolver that Eddie Valiant had in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, as they even dwarf a BFR. But as stated previously, these are rare as production eventually ceased. Now, the D-Max Sidewinder started chambering the 4570 in the 90s, and once bought out by Magnum Research, the 4570 started appearing in the bigger, beefier BFR. The 4570 has a .458-inch diameter bullet that was originally 405 grains loaded with 70 grains of black powder, and thus didn't have the most impressive muzzle energy. The typical loading produced around 1,300 feet per second, which would generate 1,520 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Not impressive by today's standards, but it was sufficient for the time. Modern loadings increase pressure and increase the velocity of the 4570 to shoot the same 405 grain projectile at a staggering 2,000 feet per second, generating muzzle energy of 3,597 foot-pounds. And in the 10-inch barrel BFR, you're looking at 68 foot-pounds of free recoil, which is competing with top 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum loads. Anyone else like the hot stuff? Now, I rolled the 450 Marlin in with the 4570 government for a reason. The 450 Marlin was designed by Marlin and Hornady in the year 2000. It's essentially a modern-day equivalent of the 4570 and features the same length case of 2.1 inches. But the case is belted and rimless, so you could use it in a bolt action if you wanted. Of the guns mentioned here, only the BFR is chambered in this beast, and it is essentially equivalent to the extra hot 4570. But both rounds will make cannons out of revolvers. Time now for a quick honorable mention. The Century Manufacturing Incorporated revolver frame that spawned the Model 100 was not just chambered in the 4570 and 444 Marlin. They also chambered the gun in 375 Winchester, the 3030 Winchester, and the 5070 Government. That's right, the 5070 Government. Dubbed the Model 500 and inscribed on the barrel with the Mother Load, the Model 500 was the same frame with a bigger bore and bigger cylinder chambers. The 5070 Government was designed in 1866 and was the first U.S. military-issued metallic rifle cartridge. Using a 1.75-inch long brass case, it shot a .510-inch diameter bullet weighing 450 grains over a charge of 70 grains of black powder. Velocity was around 1,260 feet per second, producing 1,587 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Modern loadings can shoot a 400-grain bullet at 1,849 feet per second, producing a powerful 3,037 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. But the cartridge wasn't giving the military the accuracy, penetration, or range they wanted, which led to its replacement by the 4570 in 1873, seeing only 7 years of service. Badass though the 5070 sounds, this isn't where the fun stops with the Model 500. In rare custom orders, Century Manufacturing would extend the frame and the cylinder and chamber them in the immense 5110 Winchester centerfire. Can you say holy sh**? Now, when it was designed in 1899, the .510-inch bullet, set in a 2.4-inch brass case, utilized a 450-grain bullet over 110 grains of black powder to generate 1,475 feet per second and 2,190 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Not bad by any means, but a fellow on YouTube with a channel called Leverguns 50 has clocked 300-grain bullets flying out of his 1886 Winchester with modern powders that generate a massive 2,845 feet per second, meaning 5,393 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Even in a rifle, that is a massive amount of power. Now, the trouble with the Model 500 is that its rarity has led to my inability to confirm just what loads that they can handle. I've seen the 5070 models pop up at auction here and there, but I have only seen the 5110 in the book The World's Most Powerful Rifles and Handguns by Robert Adam. And the picture here is the only one I can recall seeing, ever. You're likely to find unicorn turds before you find one of these. But that kind of power ambiguity and rarity is going to leave the Model 500 as nothing more than an honorable mention. Number 3. The 50 Alaskan, chambered in the Magnum Research BFR. Question. What do you do when you move to Alaska with nothing bigger than a Winchester lever-action rifle and .348 Winchester and you first lay eyes on a Kodiak Grizzly? If your answer was to soil yourself, you'd be correct. This was the conundrum that faced Harold Johnson in the early 1950s. While he initially made a Wildcat for the .348 Winchester that was like a hot 4570, dubbed the 450 Alaskan, there was room for more power. Harold Johnson worked with a gunsmith named Harold Fuller to kick it up a notch. What's with the name Harold and big guns? Using the same .348 Winchester case, Johnson expanded the case mouth out straight to hold a .510-inch caliber bullet. Then he cut 720-grain 50 BMG bullets in half and used the rear-end boat tail as the front end of the bullet with a flat me-plat. Fuller rebarreled a Winchester lever-action with a .50 caliber barrel, and the 50 Alaskan was born. This cartridge is a behemoth to be sure, and Harold Johnson stated in his later years that he never once recovered a slug from a moose or a bear. Regardless of which direction the bullet entered the animal, it would always exit. Considering you can load 450-grain bullets to 2,000 feet per second, the result is a shoulder-bashing 4,407 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And when it comes to revolvers in this cartridge, the BFR has been the perfect donor gun. Several people, including Lee Martin on SingleActions.com, have rebarreled their long-cylinder BFRs, bored out the cylinders, and tested their metal against a truly wrist-wrenching wheel gun. Lee Martin clocked a 525-grain bullet at 1,607 feet per second. That's a monstrous 3,011 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. The downsides here are twofold. First is money. You will need to get the revolver custom made, as this is not chambered by MRI. Custom gun builders are few and far between, and the cost is incredibly high. Then there's the ammunition. While Buffalo Bore, Grizzly Cartridge, and one or two others manufacture it, the cost for 20 rounds goes from $82 US to $120 US at the time of this video. You can buy brass and dies, so reloading is a more cost-effective route. Second is the recoil. Now, a 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum BFR shooting 440 grain bullets at 1,689 feet per second generates about 65 foot-pounds of free recoil. A Glock 21 45 Auto will generate between 7 and 9 foot-pounds, while a Ruger Super Red Hawk and 44 Magnum will generate between 13 and 22 foot-pounds. So the 500 Magnum is almost tripling the 44 Magnum. So how about the 50 Alaskan in a BFR? Well, the result of that 525 grain bullet at 1,607 feet per second is an unbelievable 97 foot-pounds of free recoil. Almost 4.5 times the recoil of a 44 Magnum and 1.5 times the recoil of a 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. Holy hell, that is going to be one tough bucking bronco to tame. And if it gets away from you, author Max Prasick can testify to the consequences. Just look at that. If you want one of these, you've been warned. Number 2. The .458 Winchester Magnum, chambered in the Pfeiffers Eliska. The .458 Winchester Magnum was designed in 1956 for hunting the African Big Five. It was designed for a bolt-action rifle that would be less expensive than the double-barreled rifles made by companies like Holland & Holland. Now, these manufacturers make superbly designed and built rifles, but they are in no way affordable. Just go look them up on Gunbroker to see for yourself, but make sure you're sitting down first. With a 500 grain bullet, the .458 Winchester Magnum can achieve a velocity of 2,192 feet per second, generating a massive 5,336 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Whew, that is some massive power. And the revolver that was built for this cartridge is indeed just as massive. Literally. In 1995, Adolf Zeliska, an Austrian firearms enthusiast working at Pfeiffer Waffen, an Austrian gunsmithing and hunting company, developed a massive 5-shot revolver chambered in the Safari Standard .458 Winchester Magnum. The barrel is 13.2 inches long, and the revolver weighs a staggering 13 pounds. A quick note, I had trouble locating a lot of pictures for this revolver, which I will explain later. I apologize for the lack of visuals. Considering the recoil of this caliber, that weight will really help. It keeps that 500 grains at 2,192 feet per second to generating a modest for this list 52 foot-pounds of free recoil. Now, some have chambered the BFR and .458 Winchester Magnum, but you have to limit the cartridge overall length by deeply seating the bullet so the round will fit in the cylinder. So you're not getting the full potential. But with the Pfeiffer's Eliska, the only thing that gets shortened is the lifespan of the shooter's wrists. Number 1. Drum roll, please. The 600 Nitro Express, chambered in the Pfeiffer's Eliska. This is not a joke. This was first produced in 2001 by the same crazy bastard that produced our number 2 choice. This is also why I had trouble finding pictures of the .458 Win Mag revolver, as the majority of the images are of this monstrosity. The 600 Nitro Express was developed around 1899 by a British gunmaker in London called W.J. Jeffrey & Company. It features a 3-inch long case originally loaded with 100 to 120 grains of cordite under a 900 grain .620-inch bullet. Cordite was used prior to modern smokeless powders and contained nitroglycerin, hence the nitro designation. The result is a velocity of up to 2,050 feet per second out of a rifle barrel that generates up to 8,400 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Oh my God! That is immense! And for a reason. The purpose of the 600 Nitro Express is for stopping an angry and or wounded elephant that was about to trample you flatter than a sheet of paper. That's right. This wasn't made to hunt the elephant. This was made to save your ass when you didn't aim well and pissed one off. There is a video of this cartridge being shot out of one of the Pfeiffer's Eliska revolvers that I will include a link to. They provide some specs so we can talk realistic numbers. The 600 Nitro Express Pfeiffer's Eliska revolver has a 10-inch barrel with a massive muzzle brake. The revolver, loaded, weighs 10.7 pounds, lighter than the previous model due to more steel being bored out. And they test-fired 1,000 grain bullets averaging 1,574 feet per second, producing a whopping 5,502 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. And that brings us to the recoil numbers. That round, without including the damping effect of the muzzle brake, produces a heart-stopping 166 foot-pounds of free recoil. That is 2.5 times the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum and 1.7 times that of the 50 Alaskan in a BFR. Thank the Lord for that muzzle brake. The shooter in the video is wearing a motorcycle helmet, and it's easy to see why. Keep in mind that shooting the 600 Nitro Express has been known to break collarbones when shot from a rifle in the prone position. This is the ultimate rifle cartridge chambering in a revolver, and you will pay the ultimate price for it. And no, I don't mean the recoil. In either chambering, the Pfeiffers Eliska revolver has to be custom built and will cost you a whopping $18,500 US at the time of this video. What the hell, the kids don't need to go to college anyways. I highly doubt a more powerful cartridge will ever be put into a revolver, as you'd have to go up to the 700 Nitro Express. And that would only happen because of the obsession of some incredibly crazy son of a bitch. But barring that, revolvers don't get bigger bore than this. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Did we leave any rifle calibers out that you think deserved a spot on this list? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and feel free to remind my brother that he still owes me a 444 Marlin BFR. No, Steve, I am not letting this go in this lifetime. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content. And remember, go big bore or go home.